The most common question that I get about Apollo the Octopus is there a video on how to do the suckers because I'm stuck? Now there is one. This video is a supplement to the crochet pattern. It's only going to show you how to crochet the suckers, so you'll need to actually own the pattern in order for the video to make sense. You can get this crochet pattern in my Etsy shop. It's called Apollo the Octopus, and he's a giant sea monster with a kajillion suckers on his tentacles that take forever to make and confuse a lot of people. But the pattern also tells you how to make it without all of the suckers, so then it's a bit easier and quite a lot quicker. Apollo's pattern, like all my patterns, has very detailed written directions with lots of pictures, especially the part where you make the suckers because they are tricky. But it's a lot of information to take in, so I made this video to break it down and hopefully make it easier to digest. I'm going to be demonstrating on this little sample piece that I've made, just to have a small piece to work onto. This is exactly the same width as the piece that you would be working on, and I'm going to crochet some suckers onto this middle row. The way that I'm going to show you now is exactly the same as the pattern tells you. I just happen to be working on this row. The pattern will tell you exactly which row to work on. I think the confusing part is just knowing which spaces to work into, so that's what I'm going to be going into in detail with this video. Follow along with me in the video and try and identify each set of loops that I'm showing you, so that you can recognize them, so that you know where to work into. On page 10 of the pattern there's a little introduction that goes into detail about helping you recognize what part of these stitches we're going to work into, because the sucker gets worked onto the posts of these double crochet stitches and onto the loops that are between the stitches. So we're going to start in between the stitches, then we're going to work our way up the stitch, then work between the stitches, and then work our way down the stitch post. On page 10, each stitch position is labeled from A to F. So I'm going to go through those and show you exactly where each position is so that you can recognize it. So I'm going to be working my suckers onto this row, and I'm going to be working onto these two stitches. You always work your first sucker onto the third and fourth double crochet of the row. That's my starting chain. These are my stitches. 1, 2, 3, and 4. I'm going to be working onto those two. So we want to find point A. So I'm putting my hook into the previous row, the stitch loops, and out between those two stitches. That is point A. So to find point B, notice how there are 3 loops here. 1, 2, 3. We want to work into this left loop and this loop that goes across here. So we're going to stick our hook in from the bottom through those 2 loops. That is point B. To find point C, on the stitch post, we're going to be working into those 2 loops, the only 2 loops that you can see at the top of the stitch post. Coming in from the bottom, I'm going to insert my hook into those 2 loops. This is point C. Now point D is between these stitches again, so I'm going to go into those loops and come out between the 2 stitches. To find point E, we're going to be working into the third double crochet post, starting in the top 2 loops, the same 2 loops that we worked into on the previous post. Insert from this side under those 2 loops. And finally point F, once again note the 3 loops that we have at the bottom of this post. We're going to be working into this loop and this loop. Insert your hook from this side under both loops. That is point F. Okay, let's crochet a sucker. As I said, I'm going to be working into this row, into those 2 stitches. So you want to start between the 2 stitches. So I'm putting my hook into point A, which means I'm going into the loops of the previous row and coming out between those 2 stitches. Then I'm going to join my sucker color with a slip stitch, which just means you draw up a loop of yarn through that space. Alright. And there I have my yarn joined at point A. This is point A. Then I'm going to chain 1 and work a single crochet into the same space. Chain 1, single crochet into the same space. Then I'm just going to pull this loose end to the back of my workpiece so that it's out of the way. For the video, you should work yours in as you go, but the pattern will tell you to do that. And there we have 1 single crochet that is joined between the 3rd and 4th double crochets. Now to find point B. So if we look at the stitch post, the left stitch, and look for the loops that we identified earlier. So the very top loops make a V, and just below them we have an upside down V. And these 2 loops making the upside down V, that is point B. And we want to work into point B from this direction. So I'm going to work 2 single crochets into that space. One, 2. Now to locate point C. So if I look at my stitch post, the only loops I have left is that little V that was right at the top of the stitch post. So I want to work into those 2 loops from this direction. That is point C. I'm going to work 2 single crochets into there. Right, now we've used up all of the stitch loops on that post. Now we want to find point D. So D is worked between the stitches like A was. So between your stitches you have a loop that you can work into from this direction. So I'm going to rotate my workpiece so that I can get in there. Working into that loop, I'm going to work 1 single crochet. That is point D. Alright, now we want to work into this post to get back down to the beginning of our sucker so that we can close it up, making it a ring. So I'm going to just rotate back to where we started and look for those loops that we identified earlier. So we identified this little V that is right at the top of the stitch post, and we want to work from the outside in into those 2 loops. So I'm going to rotate so that I can get in there, and I'm going to work 2 single crochet into that V. That is point E. Now point F is our last point, and when we started off here, we identified these 3 loops at the bottom of the post. This downward facing V, that's what we're working into from the outside in. So from this direction into there, I'm going to work 2 single crochet. Then your very last step is to slip stitch into the first single crochet, which is right here. And tie off. The pattern will tell you to work the loose end in as you go, which means that this loose end will get wrapped around your sucker inside those stitches all the way around, so that when you pull on it, you can pull the sucker closed a little bit, and now you can weave your loose end in and do your next sucker. The next sucker will be worked on this side using these 2 stitches, starting off between the stitches, just like we did the first one. And every single sucker after that will be exactly the same. You always start between the 2 stitches, then work into the upside down V, work into the V, work into that single loop, work into the V, work into the upside down V, and finish in your first single crochet. I hope that was helpful and cleared up any confusion. If you still have questions about Apollo or any of my patterns, you can post your questions in my Facebook group called Projectarian. There is a link in the description box. Post your questions there, and my support team of real live unicorns will answer them. They will guide you through any part of my pattern that you're stuck with, anything that you need help with. If you would like to try this pattern, it is rated as advanced, so my patterns are easy, intermediate, and advanced. So this guy is more challenging, but definitely doable for somebody who's an intermediate level. My goal as a designer is literally to write patterns that are easy to follow, to elevate your skills and enable you to do something that you maybe thought you couldn't before. So don't be intimidated by this project. It is very time consuming, yes, but very satisfying to finish a project this size. If you have made Apollo, I would love to see pictures. You can tag me on Instagram or Facebook if you want me to see your posts and interact with you. If you do already follow me on Instagram and you're familiar with my work, let me know if there are any specific types of videos you'd like to see. Is there something else you'd like me to demonstrate? I do have some ideas for the types of videos that I want to make for this channel, but I want to hear from you as well. My next video is going to be on how I transformed Atlas the lion cub into a furry tiger for a doll collaboration. It was Delightful's tropical doll collaboration that she had last year. So I'll see you there. Bye.